is Joanne Petrie. Welcome to One to Another podcast. Today we're going to talk about 12 freedoms in healing and grief. I talked about these things before, but I wanted to talk about them on my podcast. And the whole idea of getting these, I learned these from Alan Wolfelt. And I have found they've been very practical in working through grief. And so I want to share what I've learned and also share what he has put on paper, and I'm going to enlarge on it. And I hope help you see that there's freedom in healing and grief. So the number one is that you have the freedom to realize your grief is unique. Your grief is unique. No one will grieve exactly the same way. Your experience will be influenced by a variety of factors. The relationship you had with the person who died, the circumstances surrounding the death, your emotional support system, your culture and religious background. As a result, you will grieve in your own special way. Don't try to compare your experience with the other people that you know that are going through grief. Don't adopt the assumption that just how long your grief should last. Consider taking one day at a time approach, and that can give you a way to allow yourself to grieve your own way. So number one, you have the freedom to realize your grief is unique. Number two is you have the freedom to talk about your grief. I believe it's so important to talk. If you can find someone that'll listen, express your grief openly. By sharing your grief outside yourself, healing occurs. Most people don't believe that, but it is true. Ignoring your grief won't make it go away. Talking about it often makes you feel better. Does it make you feel sad a while? Yeah, you're sharing. You may have a lot of tears. But allow yourself to speak from your heart, not just your head. We get so much head knowledge, and we forget that we need to bring it down to the heart. Doing so doesn't mean you're going crazy or losing control. It just means that's a very normal part of the journey that you're on. You've got to find some caring friends and relatives, anybody who's willing to listen without judging. We've got to seek out people who will walk with, not in front of or behind you in your journey through grief. I find, and most of the people that I have talked to and been with say we've got to avoid people who are critical or who try to steal your grief from you. You know, they may say, keep your chin up. Well, whose chin is up when you're in the middle of grief? Or carry on, or be happy. Well, it's very difficult to be happy when you're talking about your grief. While these comments may be well intended, you do not have to accept them. You can just wipe them off your shoulders and say, nope, I can't do that. You have the right to express your grief. No one has the right to take it away. The third freedom you have is you have the freedom to expect and feel a multitude of emotions. Experiencing loss affects your head, your heart, and your spirit. Consequently, you may experience a variety of emotions as part of your grief work. Confusion. It's hard to remember your name. You have a to-do list to do. You can't remember where you're to start on it. You are disorganized. Fear. Fear has a way of stealing everything in us. We're so afraid that we can't express what we're feeling. We have guilt, and guilt's like a Hallmark card. It just keeps giving and giving. Then you have some relief, or you have an explosion of emotions. You know, those are just a few of the emotions you're going to experience. Sometimes these emotions will follow each other, one after another, for a very short time. And when that happens, it's okay. As strange as some of these emotions seem, they are normal and healthy. Allow yourself to learn from your feelings. You might think, well, why am I feeling this today? Why am I so sad? And don't be surprised if out of nowhere you suddenly experience surges of grief, even at the most expected times, like when you're driving your car or you're in the grocery store, you're talking to a friend. These grief attacks can be frightening and leave you feeling overwhelmed. They are very natural and a response to death of someone that you've loved. Find someone who understands your feelings and will allow you to talk about them. We need to find people who are willing to validate our feelings, listen to us, and not be judgmental or tell us what to do. Feelings or being numb when someone dies is just a part of the grieving process. This numbness serves as a valuable purpose. It gives you a time for your emotions to feel what your mind is telling you. These times when we're insulated help us sometimes work through the reality of the loss until you're more able to tolerate what you don't want to believe. I say it's kind of like a fog. It just comes down and stays with you until you can handle everything in your mind that goes to your heart, and then it goes to your feet. So begin to walk out this horrible pain. We have the freedom, number 5, to be tolerant of your physical and emotional limits. Your feelings of loss and sadness will probably leave you fatigued, that's for sure. Your ability to think clearly and make decisions may be impaired, and your low energy level may tell you to slow down. Respect what your body and mind are telling you. Learn to nurture yourself. Maybe get some rest, eat balanced meals, lighten your schedule as much as possible. I have found that caring for yourself doesn't mean feeling sorry for yourself. You know what it means? You're using survival skills to make it through this journey that you're on. The 6th freedom is that you have the freedom to experience grief attacks or memory embraces. Sometimes out of nowhere, you may have a surge of grief come over you, and this can be frightening, and it does leave you feeling overwhelmed. These grief attacks or memory embraces, I call them memory embraces. They're normal and natural. Find someone who understands, who will let you talk it out. When you have that memory embrace, it's so important to be able to talk that out with someone. The next freedom has to do with you have the freedom to develop a support system. We need each other. Do you remember that little thing that we did when we were little? Maybe you didn't. It's that you put your hands together and you say, here's the church and here's the steeple, open the door, and here's all the people. Well, we have the freedom to develop a support system. Reaching out to others and accepting support is often difficult, especially when you hurt so much. But the most compassionate self-action you can do at this difficult time is find a support system of caring friends and relatives who will provide the understanding you need. Find people who encourage you to be yourself and acknowledge your feelings, both happy and sad. I have a support group that meets twice a month at the Senior Center in Oregon City, and it is a place where men and women come together, and they're learning how to develop support with each other so that we can begin to be a team of people who understand that we have to have other people in our lives that can listen to us and validate what we're going through. Freedom number 8, I think, is probably very important, and that is the one that you have the freedom to make use of ritual. The funeral ritual does more than acknowledge the death of someone loved. It helps you provide a place where people can come that want to support and care for you. I have found that most importantly, the funeral is a way for you to express your grief inside of yourself on the outside. If you eliminate this ritual, you often set yourself up to repress your feelings. You also cheat everyone else who cares and wants to pay tribute to that person who was and always will be loved. I have found that in the last maybe year, people are opening up again and finding places to have services to express the pain of the person they've lost. It's not necessarily in a church, it could be in a park. I did one service in a tavern. The man that owned the tavern died. And so we brought people together in the tavern and we had that experience of remembering him and sharing. Sometimes people have them in their home, or maybe they just rent a particular restaurant and they have a place that they can set aside for people to come and share what they remember. So the funeral, the memorial service, the time to remember is important. There's also another part of ritual that's very important, and that is as you begin your grief journey, that I have found that it's important to have ritual to learn to say goodbye. And I've learned that in anticipatory grief, where I am at the moment, that I am learning how important it is to have ritual to say goodbye to a relationship and say hello to where the relationship is now. That's not easy to do because we're still with a person, but learning to say goodbye and having a ritual of being there to honor what's happened and what's no longer there. And I want to just share with you one ritual that I have done. The ritual that I want to share with you that I have accomplished because I needed to was saying goodbye to Ron in cars and driving. Ron has always loved to drive. He's been proud of himself that he's driven so many hundreds and hundreds of miles and never had an accident. Well, when we moved away from the farm, we have a 3-car garage, and we had 2 cars in the garage, and he had sold all of the cars that he had refurbished and taken care of. They were all sold. In 2015, he bought a 2007 Mercedes-Benz CLK 500. Now, I don't know a lot about cars, but this is what I know about that car. And so I did know that he wanted a convertible. He wanted a convertible that was red because red's my favorite color and he wanted it to be red. And so he bought this convertible and parked it in the 3rd car in our garage. And so I realized that he is no longer driving and is no longer able to do anything with a car. And so I took the picture that we have on our wall and I took it down and I looked at it and I started saying to him, even though he wasn't there, I just started saying to the picture, "Hey, Ron, I need to say goodbye to you and watching you wash our convertible. I know you can't do that anymore. And then I need to say goodbye to the riding in the car, all the fun trips that we had in the car. Most of the time you would say to me on Friday night, about the time I was getting off work, 'Hey, Joanne, where are you parked?' Or 'Where are you? What house? Where are you? What house are you at?' And I'd tell him and he'd say, 'Well, is there a place close by where you can park the car?' I said, 'Yep.' He said, 'Well, I'll come by and get you in the convertible and we'll go for a ride and I'm going to take you out to dinner.' All right, I said, 'Let's do it.' So he come rolling in with this beautiful red car with the top down, and he'd come around and open the door and let me in. And I just remember how much fun it was to ride in that car and letting the breeze blow through my hair and also just seeing the joy that Ron had driving the car. And it was amazing to me that every time we parked the car in any parking lot, and he'd park it usually a long ways away from all the other cars, we would draw a crowd because people thought that car was something else. And it was. And so as I am going through the memories and having a ritual, I realized that I needed to say goodbye to him ever driving the car again and realizing that we had to sell it. And so he agreed that it was time for us to sell the car. And so we put it up for sale. And a friend of ours came along and said, I've always watched you guys in this car and I want to buy it. And so he came upon a price that was fair and bought the car. And I remember the day that that car left our garage, never to return. It was a little tough to watch that car leave, but I knew it was time because I knew that he'd never drive it again. Well, the next week, after the car was gone in the garage, I'd come home and he'd be walking just around where the car was. And I could tell the grief was in his face that that car was gone and he would never drive it again. And it was a time for him to let go of a very tough place in his life. Every night, we'd walk around, talk about the car, tears coming down his face because that car was so much fun for us. I think it was probably the last time that he walked around it, he said to me, took my hands and said, okay. And we were right in the middle of where the car had been parked. He took my hands and said, it's time for me to let it go. And I'm saying goodbye to the car, goodbye to ever driving it, goodbye to ever seeing you in it with me. And the tears came down both of our faces as we let go and said goodbye. But we knew that it was a time in our journey of life that life was changing. And as life changes, then we need to let go so we can say hello to a new place. And so we're saying hello to him using his blue walker, hello to walking with his cane, and hello to embracing where he is now without looking back with regret. We just get to savor the good memories. And I think one of the things that was important for me to realize is that good memories are here to stay forever. And every exit is an entrance to something else. That's how important ritual is. It's important for us to understand that the disappointments and the changes in life, we have to honor them. Yes, we need to have some sort of a ritual to honor them after they die, but there's rituals that we need to do in anticipatory grief to help us move to a place we can live in more of contentment and peace. Freedom number 9, you have the freedom to embrace your spirituality. If faith is a part of your life, express it in a way that seems appropriate to you. Allow yourself to be around people who understand and support your religious beliefs. If you're angry at God because of the death of someone you love, realize this feeling is a normal part of the grief work. Find someone to talk to who won't be critical of your feelings of hurt and abandonment. You may hear someone say, with faith, you don't need to grieve. Don't believe it. Having your personal faith does not insulate you from needing to talk out and explore your thoughts and feelings. To deny your grief is to invite problems that build up inside of you. Express your faith, but express your grief also. Number 10, you have the freedom to allow a search for meaning. You may find yourself asking, why did he or she die? Why this way? Why now? The search for meaning is often another normal process in the healing of our broken heart. Some questions have answers, some do not. Actually, the healing occurs in the opportunity to pose the questions, not necessarily getting the answers to them. Again, we have to find somebody supportive that will listen as you respond and search for answers and meaning. I've been told, and I know it's true, that when you are in a place to search for meaning, many times you may be in a crowd with other people and you're searching for that person, and you find someone maybe from the back of their head you think just looks like that person, and maybe they turn around and you realize, nope, that's not them at all. So it is amazing how we search for answers and we search for that person, but we come to realize that there is a time and a place that we have to face the fact that they are gone. Freedom number 11, you have the freedom to treasure your memories. Memories are one of the best legacies that exists after someone you love dies. We need to treasure them. Share them with your family and friends. Recognize your memories may make you laugh or cry. In either case, they're a lasting part of the relationship that you had with a very special person in your life. My late husband, Joanne, I hope you don't get these all people mixed up, but my late husband, Joanne, was a great gardener, and he could grow anything. And so one of the things that I did, he had garden boots, he had work boots, he had work shoes, he had all these different kinds of shoes. And so at Christmas, I took the things that I felt would be meaningful to friends and family, and I filled all the shoes or work boots with cactus and took them to their home and said, hey, I'm giving you a Christmas present that I hope that will help you remember the good things that you remembered about Dwayne. And they were delighted to have a pair of his shoes all filled with cactus that they could put out on their patio, or a pair of his boots that some kind of a dried arrangement or something. I can't remember all the things I put in the boots, but I gave them things that I thought would be a treasured possession and that they could keep those as memories, because good memories are here to stay forever. Number 12, you have the freedom to move towards your grief and heal. The capacity to love requires the necessity to grieve when someone loved dies. You cannot heal unless you openly express your grief. Denying your grief will only make it become more confusing and overwhelming. Embrace your grief and heal. You need to know that healing doesn't happen quickly. The grief work that you need to do takes time and energy. And remember, grief is a process, not an event. Be patient and tolerant with yourself. Never forget that the death of someone loved changes your life forever. It's not that you won't be happy again. It's simply that you'll never be exactly the same as you were before the death. Life changes you. Death changes you, but can decide that you can work through the pain as long as it takes. There's no timetable, but you can work through it and move to a place called new normal. I was going to share with you my self-talk, because I think that sometimes we have to understand that as we're working through the loss, that this is the things that I say to myself as I'm going through the journey. I am alive. I will survive. I'm healing. I am gentle with myself. My heart is slowly mending. I'm stronger. I have the courage to grow. I am grateful for so much. My patience will outlive my pain. Those have helped me grow in the middle of my loss. I hope they will help you too.